Google is a good resource, gamer. That's also true.
There you go, Hound. I just sent you a screenshot that explains.
But if we ever go further than the superficial, you know, factual understanding of consciousness, then we get into this into we get into we get into metaphysical and we get into metaphysical.
Uh, Thanks, I guess. So what's the next question? It requires 2 people its exploit. And you have to be in the same clan too, I think. There it goes. I see you're rearranging shit.
Yep. No.
Yeah, no, you were having thralls respawn instant, and that's why I said something's fishy. You need to make more forges.
Oh, I know.
Oh, not you. Finn. I mean, it would make things go faster.
Sounded about right.
Okay, I'm going to the dining hall.
Why did he do that?
I don't know why he did that, but I got to hear it twice. Yeah, just break shit down, Loot's so plentiful now that you can just literally use a dismantling bench and fully kit everything. It's a bottleneck, yeah. I know you can get oil from fish, from exotic fish. I didn't even hear him drawing. Yeah? I think calling for genocide of any form of people is violating the Geneva Convention. Well, that's a fucked thing to say.
Depends on the context. Right, here's the thing. The Geneva Convention exists under Earthling rules. Okay? So basically all human beings on Earth are meant to abide by the Geneva Convention. But let's say you get a human from Mars. They do not fall under the Geneva Convention because they're not an Earthling.
No, like, that doesn't suddenly mean that you don't get to have a sense of morality. Like, I don't give a shit what anyone says. Genocide is just wrong. Like, if there's a war going on, kill the people that are involved in the war. But, like, there are innocent people in anything going on.
You don't kill a surrendering soldier.
No. It should be just purely. It should be purely self-defense.
Yeah.
If someone attacks you, you attack them. If someone kills your people, you kill their people. But it doesn't mean that you get to go kill all of their people just because you don't like them or because you feel like they have slighted you. Like, it doesn't matter how cold-hearted you are. At some point, as a person, you realize the wrong that you're doing unto someone else. Then you do the best you can to kill the terrorist and not the human shields that he's using. Like, because there's no way you can tell me that a 10-year-old understands what's going on and what's happening to them. Like, for instance, as a child, you don't know what hate is. It's a learned trait. It is a learned behavior. Through your life experiences and the people you encounter, you are taught what hate is, what
Greetings,
dislike
Archivist.
is. No, genocide is just wrong on a level entirely, because fundamentally, there will always be people on either side of whatever the hell is going on that will not understand what's why someone is like hating upon them. Like, as kids, we're like, from the moment we're born, we are dependent on the adults around us. We are taught that we are supposed to trust adults. So whenever a soldier barges into someone's home and kills a child, or butts them with their gun, that kid doesn't understand why that just happened to them. The only thing that they know is that they hurt, that they feel pain.
And that child will actually feel hatred towards people in a camo outfit. Then,
right, but it is through the actions of others that you learn to hate. Yes, I know the depravity of humanity knows no bounds.
That's because when we are born, as little crotch goblins, we tend to want for things, and we scrape and we crawl and we bash against our surroundings, bumble into things, and pretty much most of our behaviors are learned. A good example would be my niece, my niece-in-law, whatever you'd call her.
She's still just a niece.
She's basically a manipulative piece of shit, but she's like 14. Normally, people take a long time to develop that kind of like manipulative, vindictive nature. But because she learned at a young age, Yes, she's a child that has not learned the counterparts to vengeance and hatred and manipulation. She was never taught the value of temperance or the value of compassion or any of those things. She was simply, through her experiences, taught that she could manipulate her surroundings by being a piece of shit. So all she sees is the value in manipulation, because she's basically taught herself that and been taught that by the surrounding community.
Pick up the egg.
That doesn't mean it's not her fault, because the fault does lie with her for, having clues all around her to the truth, and clues that compassion and temperance, is important.
Right, the nurture versus nature argument. At some point, it becomes a choice of that person.
Yes, and so the fault still lies with the individual. That's kind of like the same thing of, oh, my parents beat me and so I'm a shitty person because my parents beat me. No, you're a shitty person because ultimately you chose to be a shitty person. But your parents beating you and, abusing you definitely didn't help. That fault lies with them for being shitty parents and for encouraging you to be an abuser when you grow up. But it still ultimately lies with you to grow up to be a decent person and to recognize that that is bad behavior and try and change that cycle. Sometimes. Sometimes. We are constantly in a state of flux, my friend. Sometimes we're more conscious than other times. Our awareness of our surroundings is constantly fluctuating. And we can no more be constantly aware of our surroundings than an ant can be constantly aware of his world that he lives in. But we do... Huh? And yes, I believe in God. That was your next question, yes? I thought I heard you ask that.
It's funny, he did. He asked me that, despite us already having had that conversation with him before.
It is the
Actually,
Yeah.
it's the same God.
Hold on, I'll be back.
But that's the thing. We still the Christian faith still believes in the Abrahamic God, because we have the Old Testament and the New Testament.
The only difference is that many of the Hebraic faith did not believe that Jesus was the promised Messiah, and they think that he is still to come. And that's really the big difference, is that we as Christians believe
apparently
that...
I have to leave the house, right now. But, Finn, if you keep the stream up, I will keep watching it.
Alright.
Good luck with whatever you're having to deal with.
I don't know, but I have to, get dressed and have shoes on yesterday, apparently. I'll be back.
Okay. With your shield or on it, Archivist. Well, the debate over whose land is whose has always been, I want to say arbitrary, but at the same time, debate over what land is owned by whom has always been an issue. The waters become so muddied in those debates that my knee-jerk reaction is to say, get out of it, and just stay away from those kinds of conversations. But at the same time, I cannot deny the desire for somebody to have ancestral land. And, if you guys are like, hey, look, we claimed this land hundreds of years ago, and we're we're back now, then that's really kind of your guys' deal. Personally, I support the Jews because of my faith, but that's related to my religion and not so much the the technical definition of who owns what. I trust in my God, and I trust that He chose to support you guys for a reason. And despite all of the fuck-ups that have happened over the generations and generations, you guys have consistently come back to God and have shown faith. And I think that's one of the main reasons why the Jews were favored in a way, It was made known through the Messiah that all men of all tribes could be welcomed in the house of God if they were willing, and if they were willing to not be pieces of shit. But each person has to make that decision consciously, despite this, oh man, like the Jews were favored and so fuck them or whatever. At the end of the day, you have to be like, okay, look, like Jesus gave us the opportunity to be a part of the same household. So what's the issue? Who cares whether for generations God had their back and favored them and got them out of Egypt and all this stuff. That is completely inconsequential now, because we can all be a part of the same household. And during that time that was happening, there was a reason for it. It wasn't arbitrary. God wasn't just like, oh yeah, I really like these guys, so whatever. It was designed because of the times and because of the peoples and the way that people did things back then. So I trust that decision, and I trust that He knows what He's doing. And so because of that, I will always support the Israeli people. Now, I'm not always going to support the decisions that they make, because they're still people. So if they make a stupid decision and the Israeli government is like, yo, we're just gonna decide to just commit genocide, then I'm gonna be like, hey, that's a bad decision. You shouldn't do that. But I am always going to back the nation that, God has made it apparent that He loves and He has a covenant with. And that's really the bottom line, is the covenant that He made. Because everything is really, really big with covenants with God. Once you make a deal with somebody and you make a promise to them, that is, your word is your bond kind of thing. And that is incredibly important to God. And I want to honor that as well. You're kind of breaking up there, buddy. Say again? that part is lovely. Is that what you said?
He's breaking up a lot now.
Yeah. I think I got it. That part is lovely, you said? Yeah. And so in that sense, we are brothers Uh, yep. I believe that by technical definition I am Christian because I have not taken the oath of a Jew. So,
And we like
the
pork.
Jew, yeah, well, the Jewish people have a specific oath to God. Their covenant with Him is their own thing. So, yes, I could be a part of that if I wanted to be. So I could say, you know, keep the feasts, because in the Jewish faith, the feasts are very important for remembering certain things that are related to your people's history. And so when you become a part of the Jewish faith, keeping the feasts is very, very important to your dedication to that promise and that covenant. So yes, I could start keeping the feasts and observing all of the remembrances for the Jewish faith, and pledge myself to be Hebrew and become part of the nation as what's her name? Esther, was it? Esther, and there was another woman that was famous in the Bible for becoming part of a Jewish household and claiming God as her God and becoming Jewish. So, you know, you're always able to renounce where you came from, essentially, and become of the Hebrew nation. But it's not necessary for our faith to do that. That's just like an extra thing. So if you feel inside yourself that you're called to do that, you know, and you feel like that's the path that God wants you to take in life, then go for it. But if that's not where you're meant to be and what you're meant to do with your life, then there are other paths where you will still be welcomed in the house of God, but you wouldn't necessarily be Jewish. You know. Now, I am circumcised, so, you know, I have that part down, but I don't feel like in my life that God is wanting me to adhere to the Jewish principles, at least the ones that are for the purpose of bonding to that covenant. I don't feel called to that covenant, if that makes sense. I have a very strong sense in my life that I am called to being a shepherd for this clan and to have a welcome. You know how God's really big on being welcoming? Like if you have a guy come knock on your door who's hungry and who's been traveling, you're supposed to open your door and feed them, you know, clothe them and make sure that they have rest for the night and all that. It's really, really big deal. Being hospitable, I feel like that's a huge part of our faith. So extending that sentiment to teaching people the way is very important as well. Making sure that they feel loved and accepted, and that we're always willing to have open arms to people, but at the same time keep our standards and be strong in our faith, so that we're not compromising our morals, so that we can be accepting of everything. We don't want to compromise and be like, yeah, okay, you know, it's whatever if you want to be a murderer, you know. we still have to keep our morals strong and remember the way. Remember what is right and what is wrong and what is righteous. And I feel like that's kind of where my calling in life has been, is to remind people of what righteousness is, because that has been lost. We're losing our foundation in knowing good, right from wrong and all of that. I don't know if you've heard the story of what was the two that died instantly whenever they lied at the offering plate. There was a couple. God takes his covenants very seriously, and so there are times when people are struck down because of their dishonesty. There was a famous moment like that in the New Testament where this couple were basically greedy, and they lied to the church about how much they had, and they were basically being shisty and just generally promoting bad etiquette within the church. And there at the offering plate, they were struck dead. So it is possible that because of his deceitfulness, depending on what it was he was lying about, what his motives were, because it's always about the intention in the heart and what he was really trying to accomplish. If he was a deceptive person and he was trying to promote a hatred towards your people that was wrong and unjust, then it is possible that he was struck down. I don't know if that's what happened or not, but that is a possibility. But it would take us to have to know the man, to really know whether that was what happened. To see the likelihood of it. That's why in politics here in the United States, a lot of times I'll tell people, well, I don't really know the guy. It's hard to say whether this politician is really trying to do the right thing or if he's a piece of shit. And it could be that guy just had a condition and dropped dead because of his condition. But, if I found out, like, let's say I knew the guy, and I was like, yeah, this dude was obviously trying to, like, spread a smear campaign because of, dishonest motives. And he had been, spending the majority of his life like Paul. I don't know if you know much about Paul. His name was Saul, and then he changed it to Paul. He's one of the most famous apostles. He was a lawyer, and he was a prosecuting attorney for Christians for the Jewish faith. So during the time of he was among a member of the clergy of the Jewish faith. I don't remember whether he was Sadducee or Pharisee, but basically he was a really, really smart guy. He could use his words very well. I mean, obviously he was a lawyer, so, you get the idea. And he would execute Christians. He was a zealot in that. He would go around rooting out and finding Christians and executing them for tarnishing the Jewish faith. Well, he became one of the strongest Christians because on one of his journeys he got literally knocked off of his ass, his donkey he was riding, by Jesus himself, who appeared before him. And, according to the story. And Jesus came to him and straight up said, "Hey bro, like, why are you persecuting my people?" Which was a wake-up call to Paul, and basically made Paul be like, "Hey bro, like, you're just killing all these people. Why are you doing this? What's your motivation here? You're just murdering people for, like, no reason. You think that you're doing this because of it's the right thing to do legally, but is that really why you're killing people? Because this seems kind of arbitrary to be just offing people." And Paul was like, "Holy shit, like, you're right, I'm doing this for bullshit reasons." And he thought about it and realized that he was completely wrong and became a Christian because of it. Yeah, he was struck blind for a while too because of it. But that's an ego thing, Paul was an egomaniac, and he thought himself hot shit. He was a hot shit lawyer, and he could talk his way around any situation. And him getting knocked off of his ass was like a huge joke, which proves that God has a sense of humor. But yeah. Inevitably, people that are on high horses because of the sake of pride get. You've heard the saying, "Pride cometh before the fall," right? That's an ancient Jewish proverb. That's from is it Proverbs or Psalms? It's in one of those. You still there, gamer? Well, essentially it says pride comes before the fall. In other words, the more prideful you are, the harder you're going to crash whenever your fall comes. One of the reasons that Jesus spent so much time preaching to the Pharisees and the Sadducees is because they were corrupt as fuck with pride. At the time, they had lost sight of the covenant with God that they had made, and they were obsessed with their prideful image to the public. For instance, there was, the priests would go and they would sacrifice in public and exclaim to everyone, "Look at how righteous I am. Look at how beautiful my sacrifices are that I'm bringing to the altar. Look at how beautiful my clothes are, to come to the temple dressed in my finest." And it became more about their self-righteous pride than it was about God or the covenant of God. And so when Jesus talked to them, he's sitting there in, like, practically beggar's clothes, going, "Look, guys, like, pride has nothing to do with it. You're a pit of vipers." That's one of the things he said to them. He's like, "You guys have become corrupt, and you have become everything that God stands against." And they killed him for it. So
Paul identified as a Pharisee.
Paul was a Pharisee, just to clear that up. You know about the Pharisees and the Sadducees? The two... They were the two ruling priest factions at the time, during the Roman times and before, that controlled the Church of Israel. Pharisees and Sadducees were, one of them was for legal purposes, like they were priests that were also like lawyers and stuff. That's what the sect that Paul was part of, and then the other sect was for more religious purposes. They were like the main religious